I'll just invite Dr. Sen to present then. She has accessibility as the missing link in the religious tourism. Here we have someone who just presented a beautiful layout for accessibility. So now the missing link, Dr. Lalita Sen.
Thank you.
Can I just, sorry. Dr. Lalita Sen is professor at Department of Urban Planning and Environment Policy, Barbara Jordan Mickey Leland School of Public Affairs, Texas Southern University. After her BSc from University College of Sensia, University of Wales, she pursued MS and a Ph.D. in Transportation Geography from Northern University. Her area of research and publication has been on evaluation of accessibility, and she has recently focused on accessible tourism in developing countries and its impact on community development and generations of economic opportunities.
Thank you. Oh.
Your time starts now.
Okay. Thank you. Since this is a perfect lead-on, since we already have one paper on religious tourism. So I just want to quickly go through, these are some of the sites of cultural heritage as well as major temples and other religious sites of great importance, since we have all the religions represented in India. And the key thing that we have to look at, there is a huge demand, growing demand for tourism, with not only at the world level, but also in terms of international tourists that come from all over the place. And we focused on India just because that is one area where religious tourism is a big issue. So these are some of the statistics which deal with the demand for this within India. Now, within India, one of the key elements of tourism is we have not only several all the major religions represented, but it's also one where you essentially have people coming or moving within the country, if not from outside, to come to these key sites. So we really feel that that's a very important area, and this is a very important area which needed to be focused on when it came to accessible tourism, just because people, particularly those who are senior and disabled, feel once in their lifetime they would like to be able to go and visit some of these key sites. So demand for accessible tourism is embedded in this whole area of looking at both foreign as well as internal movement of tourists. And we're talking about people who are 55 and above. So if we look at India, is no different than any other country. We now have longevity which is increased, so there's a growing group of people who are over 60. And so we think about tourism for this particular group as a very important section. So within India, it is one of the most populous country, well, next to China. And if we look at some of the elements involved in tourism, we will in fact have to deal with the fact that it is an area where you would expect larger number of people who are going to be disabled, who also still would like to continue to be as active as possible. So within the World Bank estimate of 40 to 80 million disabled people, we need to consider what is going on in a country like India, which represents. Now, an interesting aspect of the disabled travel is look at the way that they tend to book for travels. Although some people obviously have help, but clearly now internet has become one of the big ways of booking for travel, as well as phone calls. And so both in terms of travel itself, as well as accommodation, and the other statistics which are given in this slide, would essentially imply that you're not only talking about the disabled people, but also the caregivers or the assistant who will be traveling with them. So we do need to think about what are the barriers in terms of the environment, and how do we essentially take the initiative to mainstream the need for people to move around, particularly for religious and pilgrimage sites, to ensure accessibility to everybody. So for the disabled seniors, one of the key elements of visiting a religious site is often not only a once-a-lifetime trip, but also to make it without any kind of accidents and as visible and as comfortable as possible. These are quick information in terms of all the different levels of disability and type of disability we need to accommodate. And now we're going to look at two specific sites that we felt would illustrate what India as a country has to deal with. One is this temple Kamakhya in the northeastern part of India, outside Guwahati, Assam, and the other one in the western part of India, which is a holy site for the Sikh. And these are both very much considered sites that each one of the two religious groups represented here are considered once-in-a-lifetime trip. First thing, Kamakhya in the northeastern part of India is on top of a hill, and essentially this gives you an overview of what the temple looks like, and it attracts thousands of devotees, particularly during certain times of the year when everybody who feels that this is once in a lifetime trip will make the effort to go during that particular time. So to get to the issues that someone who's making the trip has to deal with, first of all, even if you go in a car as close to the temple as possible, once you arrive at the city, you're essentially dealing with the fact that if you're in a wheelchair or any other disability, problems with disability, particularly physical disability, you're not going to be able to get that close to the main temple. Here are the entryways. So right away you have problems of encountering no handrails and no steps. Once you get inside the temple, you have various levels, and again, essentially you have to have assistance. There is no other way to get around. Within the temple, there are various rooms and sections which are often very narrow, very small, and again, the assistance is required in order to navigate this. Even for an able-bodied person, you have to be very careful because you're dealing with large volume of people who come during that particular auspicious time. And finally, to get to the real area where a lot of the actual prayers are said, which involve fire burning, where the priest is essentially giving blessing to everyone, there is no way to get any closer than, as you see in the picture, it is totally inaccessible except for able-bodied individual. And once you're out, again, if you want to have offering, usually in Hindu temples, it's flowers and other kind of sweets that are offered and taken home after it's blessed back to the family. You have problems of acquiring all this because, again, everything is on a stepped level. So here we are seeing all this. And going to the problem of exiting, you have the same issues. Now, here are some of the provisions that are provided by the temple, which is some kind of makeshift chair, which if you are a small person or a child perhaps who's disabled, you might consider getting in, but chances are anyone who's able-bodied or has been in a wheelchair is not likely to want to do that. So, no provision for the visually impaired or no accessible public toilet, absence of directional signage, and no provision for those with a hearing impairment. Possible solutions. These are some ways of making it feasible to accommodate, and also for a narrative for those who are hearing impaired. The second site is the Gurdwara on the western part of India, and again you have the same kind of issues, even more because you have to leave your shoes outside, no accessible ways of getting that, or drinking water if you're on a long trip and you have to wait in line. Again, ramped stairway with no handrails, no accessible toilets, Again, no provision for the visually impaired or directional signage. And a possible solution is ramps and provide accessible toilets or tactile guideways, accessible parking. So in both cases, you have all these gaps. And the question is, why is there a gap? Part of it is lack of awareness of the level and degree of implementation in the chain, and that includes people who build or make any changes, non-enforcement by authorities or supervisors, no accountability. Even though we have the Persons with Disabilities Act in India, it doesn't matter, it's not enforced. There's no fine involved. So, what is the value of accessible tourism? It benefits everybody, it enhances visitors' experience, contributes to the economy, provides equal rights, and most of all, it encourages independence and confidence amongst. And I want to leave everyone with this slide of the Kumbh Mela, which you may have all read about in the newspapers. It's the largest event in India, which happens every 12 years, and it happened 2013, where 11 million individuals were crossing from one side of the river to the other. So if we can accommodate, and this was, by the way, temporarily built by the armed forces, and there were very few incidents. The only accident that happened was at the railroad station. So the question we would like to ask is, why can't it happen to those fixed sites of religious? So I want to leave you with this statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lalita. Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask both India and Saudi Arabia, where you have special big events which include so many people, how do you handle the evacuation part, which is a problem also without disability?
Lalita.
Okay. I'm going to leave it up to Abha to answer the details, but since the bridges and all the roadway and signage during Kumbh Mela is organized by the armed forces in India, I would imagine they know that they're going to be not just 11 million, perhaps even more. So if she knows the details, she'll be able to provide it.
We have the administration which comes in. There is Mela, and this Kumbh Mela administrator is there, and it's a drill which is followed to the last T. Every precaution is taken, and we have not had a mishap of any magnitude in the past 10 odd Melas. So that itself is very commendable, and not just the safety bit of it. Even if you look at the cleanliness aspect of it, you will find, I mean, we don't have public conveniences which are as good or as good as in the West. They are makeshift ones. You will not find them completely clean. There is no littering, and these are people who are coming there are maybe completely illiterate also. But somehow the magic of the Mela and the administration, everything works beautifully. So we keep our fingers crossed also. But yes, administratively, a lot of effort which goes into it and a lot of detail which is maintained and rolled out. Thank you.
Just to add to that, just remember this event, the last slide I showed, happens every 12 years. So they have 12 years to rectify any errors that they see. The only event, the only problem that was encountered in 2013 was at the railroad station, and I'm sure next time around they'll make sure that there's a better arrangements for people to go to their proper trains and not have a stampede. Thank you.
Our case is different because it's a yearly event, and it in a certain time cannot be split. I mean, one consultant said, why don't you do it the whole year? And that's not fair and not accepted at all. So it is the management of running the whole show. This year there was more than 100,000 military soldiers taking care of the queuing the people and directing the people, because the most difficult thing is the directions. People, when they mix of directions, then the problems happen. So they have to keep them in track. They have to take care of the elderly. They have to take care of the children. They have to take care of plus other governmental agencies which is take care of. So it's a huge event, and it's yearly, and it is It's not that easy to manage 5 million people in one directions in the same spots, moving from one spot to another. So the transportation is another big issue, how to transport them from one area to another. And recently we are using trains now between Arafah and Mina, and these trains are the largest massive trains in the world that could carry hundreds of thousands of people in one shot, one direction. So it is, it's a big management, actually. It is a unique management. It doesn't happen anywhere. One said, okay, I mean, it's a holy place and the people have to come. And the diversity of people coming from Africa, from Asia, from all type of part of the world, elderly, less education, less knowledge to this event. It's not like in India, for instance, they are all one Indians, but here we have variety of 130 countries around the world, people coming from there. It's a very interesting issue, and we are trying now to use all the models of mass management. It's bigger than, they said, okay, let's just see what Disneyland is doing, or let us say to see what the sport people are doing, but it's not the case. This is really something different completely, so that's it. You have to test, to try to feel it. But anyway, it is once a life. I mean, for the Muslims, it's not necessary every year. No, it is once a life. So, to the people who could afford it, like for instance, from India, the Indian Muslims, they pay more than for 25 years installment before they can get the money to come to Mecca. And the poor, they take the ships to Jeddah, the others they take airplanes, so it is a matter of management in different countries. Thank you.